Please be seated. I've received apologies for absence from the following councillors: Brooke, Brown, R. Clark, Cutler, Evans, Fletcher, Gray, Holmes, G. Jeffrey, Nightingale, Pallister, White, Levan, and J. Thompson. Are there any more apologies?
Running late and will be here any moment, and Councillor Taylor will be here about 3 o'clock, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jones is running late but is arriving.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and also Councillor Tim Gray, as he's on other business for the council in Wales, and Councillor Powley is running late and will be arriving soon.
There is a declaration of interest forms going around. Could please members fill in any declaration of interest? Thank you. First order of business, and can we confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of February 26? Could I have our proposer and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Massey. Thank you. And can we have agreement from the, everyone's agreed that minutes are okay? Yeah, thank you very much. Can I ask all members to note the attendance matrix from the last meeting? And we move on to item 5, announcements from the Mayor, the Leader of Council and Cabinet members. I have a number of announcements to make. First of all, the Mayor's Community Achievement Award took place a couple of weeks ago. It was great to meet so many volunteers from our area and be able to thank them for their contributions, contributing so much to their local community on a regular basis. Can I also remind everybody about the charity ball takes place on the 24th of April. We are desperate in need of prizes, and I know a number of people have offered them, as well as hopefully ticket sales. So if you could support the event, it would be much appreciated. If you're unable to attend, a prize donation would be most welcome. Next item, my next one, on the afternoon of Saturday the 14th of March, an armed robbery took place at Market Cross Jewellers in Gisborough. Thankfully, the robber was apprehended, mainly due to 3 members of the public who chased and detained the suspect until the police arrived at the scene. I would like to welcome Adam Williams, Nigel Booth and Andrew Whitlock forward to present them with a certificate of commendation from the council to thank them for their act of bravery. Would they like to come forward? I have one more announcement. Today is Elizabeth Dale's last full council meeting, as she's retiring at the end of April after 49 years of service in local government. On behalf of all the councillors and officers, Liz, thank you so much for all your hard work and commitment and for doing such a fantastic job. Please enjoy your well-deserved retirement. Next, I know the leader, Alex, not here, but I do have a statement, I think, from, is anyone going to make that statement on Alex's behalf from the leader? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Richard Robinson.
Icon, yeah. I'd like to add my thanks and appreciation to all the fantastic people who were recognised at the Mayor's annual Community Achievement Awards. They give up their time to make a real difference to the lives of others in their communities. They don't do it for the recognition, but each one of them thoroughly deserves their award, and it was a fitting way to give something back for everything they have done. I would also like to thank all the members who nominated such deserving causes. Our council is once again taking part in the Great British Spring Clean. Our street scene teams and street sweepers are out and about cleaning footpaths, alleyways, roads, removing fly tipping, dog fouling, weeds and any other waste. Our residents deserve a clean and tidy borough, and these deep cleans are a great example of the difference our teams make. An upgrade of our CCTV systems across Redcar and Cleveland is now complete. New cameras in new locations have been installed, old cameras replaced, and the whole system is now entirely switched to digital. We have more than 200 cameras across the borough, and this will provide a great help in tackling criminality, antisocial behaviour, which can cause misery for families. The 4th anniversary of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine passed last month, and it is worth a reminder that our borough is home to around 90 refugees who fled their home country following the invasion. They are settled here and contribute greatly to our communities. I'm proud to say we help them in their hour of greatest need, and that we continue to welcome them to Redcar and Cleveland. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Are there any announcements from Cabinet members? No? Okay, thank you. Are there any announcements from the Chief Executive?
None, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
We have no questions. No questions ever received from the public. So we will move on to receive reports from portfolio holders. First report is from the Cabinet Member for Corporate Resources. Well, I'll just remind that this is a question and answer session with Councillor Massey presenting the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I go on to the report, I'd like to thank the members who reached out to me following the email that the Leader of the Council sent in terms of malicious communication that have been received by some people across the chamber. So I've paid particular tribute to Councillors Pugh, Leroyd, and also Councillor Taylor, who's not here, who reached out alongside members of my own group as well. That was very much appreciated. So in terms of the resources report, I am sure that you will be sick of hearing about the finances and the budget of the council, because that's what we did last time. So I've started the report by a bit of a brief overview of what's going on and what has gone on in terms of the financial position, but then I've tried to move on to some of the exciting things that happen in resources that you may not know about, because oftentimes our discussions do get subsumed by the budget. Although I do think one of the really positive things of certainly resources scrutiny, which I attend in recent years, has been the deep dives that we've done into some of those areas like the commercial strategy, volunteer strategy, or digital strategy. So to start with the finance, today's report highlights the cuts that have been made across the piece to local government largely since 2010, with £28 billion of cuts, and that nearly a quarter of all councils now are having to do what's called capitalisation of spending, which means effectively having to borrow money or sell things in order to meet the challenge of balancing the budget. So I return to the theme that I left the budget on, which is that Redcar and Cleveland is by no means alone in its challenges that it faces in terms of its finances, but it does not distract us from the hard work that we still have to do in year and also in the next financial year to ensure that Redcar is on a firm financial footing for the next 4 years after our terms end. You will note that I've briefly mentioned the Q3 financial report. Those members who are minded to read the Cabinet papers, particularly the financial ones, will note that on the 10th of March that report went through our Cabinet. It does mention that there's a £5.3 million overspend, which is one of the reasons why the budget that we passed at our last meeting has an £18.4 million ask in terms of exceptional support from the government. It's noted by the government, I think, and this is an important thing, that the biggest overspend area of our authority, as we all know, is children and families, largely due to children in our care. And the government now predict that nearly every council in the UK will overspend in children in our care. So again, we're not alone here. It's a very much a national issue, but one that we need to be mindful of as we move forward. But I do want to take time to talk about some of the unseen things that happen in the portfolio. So I'll start with the digital strategy, which the report also covers. And I think it's quite exciting, but also we need to remember the back door of this, which is we can't just assume everybody can access digital services. But now a half of all of the transactions that take place within the council take place digitally, and that includes our customer portal and our residents accessing things via their account online. We've also begun to roll out AI in some meetings, so there are AI note-taking applications. There's also Magic Notes that's working within our social work sector to try and maximise efficiencies and improve performance, and also release staff to do the day-to-day jobs that they do so well. Our IT services, as John reminds me quite often, receive 1,000 calls a month and they act on 1,500 tickets. So for us, that might be us getting in touch with IT because our laptops or telephones stop working or need a refresh. But if you take that plurally across the whole council, that is a lot of things that get solved, and 97% of things get solved within the month that they were addressed. We also have a really good performance, and members may have seen some things that go around in terms of phishing activity, so phishing with a P, not an F, and in terms of the emails that we get that are potentially trying to get information from us as councillors or officers, and we've got nearly 99% of all phishing emails are blocked before they could ever reach you or an officer, and of the 1% that remain, we're still relying on members of staff and councillors to recognise or query if there's something they're not sure about, and so please continue to do that. Excitingly, within communications, Chris Stiles tells me that we now have 27,000 Facebook followers, 19,000 newsletter sign-ups, and apparently we're on TikTok, but I don't use TikTok. In terms of workforce development, I think there's some great work both at the top and at the middle and bottom of the organisation. So we have a Rising Stars Academy, which we have 28 employees currently enrolled on and 12 employees who are about to start. We also have people already in management roles taking part in our management development programme, and we've had over 400 managers take part in that. 36 new apprentices have been recruited, and 73 members of staff across the council are undertaking higher educational activities alongside their day-to-day job, which I think is exciting. For members, there's also talk and thought that we should get an e-learning module out for members. If there's particular skills that we want to enhance as members, we hope to roll out the training that we allow staff for members as well. One thing I do want to mention though in workforce development is the appraisal system, and this is something that a number of members of resources scrutiny have been certainly hot on over the last few meetings, and indeed probably over the last few years. Within my department, resources, 96% of appraisals are completed on time, meaning within 12 months, but we know the picture is much worse across the council. So at the last resources committee, there was an action taken to do a bit more of a deep dive on some of the appraisals, because 77% for the overall council is far below the target that we would like to set. In terms of the commercial strategy, members who are again on resources, if you're not, you are missing out. It is a fun place to be. But on the resources scrutiny committee, we got a presentation a few months ago from our new procurement lead about the commercial strategy and some of the contract procedure rule changes that are coming. So in May, you will get a report which has been to Cabinet and full council talking about those procedures. And I think one of the exciting things to say here is that we now have 283 suppliers on the procurement system, and we have supported 64 suppliers in the last year, and a great number of them being local suppliers as well. In terms of the volunteer strategy, we now have 15 specific volunteer roles that you can take part in as a resident or someone interested in Redcar and Cleveland services, all the way through from museums and libraries through to countryside services, youth services, and also our family hubs. We have 138 volunteers registered, which is exciting, but also is really testament to the hard work people in this borough do to give back to their local authority and to people around them. We now, as well, in the council magazine, if you're minded to read it, have a story about a volunteer in every single edition to try and highlight that good work and encourage more people to come forward. In terms of some other services that don't have a strategy but are still vital to the way the council runs, indeed I was asked for directions in the car park for where they register their marriage licence. So one of the exciting things we do as an authority is obviously take part in civil services but also register marriages plurally. And we've had 1,000 notices of marriages and 348 births this year in our registration services. And we've also, in terms of our electoral services, had 3 successful by-elections, and congratulations to Councillor Holmes, Jeffrey and Barnes for their successes in the by-elections we had over the last year. Finally, in terms of HR, another focus of our members has been sickness absence, and I have included some of the figures in the report, but in very rough terms, we're looking at about 10 days of sickness per full-time equivalent across the council. We are actually the second best performing local authority in the Tees Valley on that metric, and indeed we're not far off the UK's average of sickness, which is 9.4 days. The final thing for members I will mention is that we now are processing 250 members' inquiries a month, and we've processed 12,000 of them since the start of that system coming on board. It has become, unfortunately, quite big, but that's a good thing in terms of it allows members to know who to contact and how to get a response. The response might not always be something the council can do immediately or even within the council's purview, but the team who operate that service do a great job for us, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I will end finally just on my note of thanks to all the officers who I've worked with over the last year and indeed prior to that. So Phil, Chris, Vicky, John and Steve, who are all kind of the directors and assistant directors in the services, but also as well I'd like to pay particular tribute to Michael Lythe, who helped me in the construction of the report as well. Michael often goes unseen, but does a great deal of work behind the scenes at the council. So I move the report and invite questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Are there any questions to Councillor Massey? Oh, yep. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I ask my questions, can I just encourage you to be in good training for your fundraising effort on the 11th of April, for which we all wish you Godspeed. Thank you for your report. We're not tired of hearing about finance, because actually this is really key, is it not, to our ability to deliver services. And although a lot of time has been spent on perusing a lot of statistics that our 151 officer has spent hours preparing, we have not, as an authority, done entire due diligence, have we? One example of that, of course, is fees and charges, where at least 2 scrutiny committees never actually discussed fees and charges. And if we had, for example, on parking fees, we would have seen that the incredibly complex matrix that details all the car parking areas in the borough is inaccurate, recording wrong names, recording wrong numbers of car parking spaces. So how is it possible to do an accurate evaluation of fees and income with incorrect data? I have 2 questions. One relates to the transformation. Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we advised that we are going to experience an organisational modernisation and efficiency programme. Perhaps not necessarily long overdue, but most welcome. What is overdue is the publication of the senior management review. This is quite important, if not critical, to an organisation to make sure that we have the correct structure in place, where departments work together, there is synergy, and we are not wondering who we should be speaking to or who's issuing orders or directives or, in fact, who is not delivering. So we look forward to that. My question in particular there is, when are we going to see the product? And then we cannot let this report go uncommented upon in respect of appraisal performance. So you've highlighted in your report, quite rightly so and highly commendably, to be doing so, the success with apprentices, the success with volunteers. Without volunteers, this authority would not function. It would function, but not as well as it is doing and can do. It is not long since a cabinet member said, we've got to think smarter. When are we going to be thinking smarter? To have 23% of our workforce not enjoying an annual scrutiny, is that a disappointment or is it a disgrace? How can we possibly encourage our employees to think that they are valued if we cannot even find the time to give them an annual appraisal? It must be at least a decade since Councillor Eyre started down the journey of questioning our performance. But even with his aspiring and inspiring comments, we have actually not improved. So 23% is nothing to be proud of. And in fact, it is something we should not even be able to publish. So my question, what are you as cabinet member going to be doing, if you are not already doing, in conversation with senior management to ensure that they are delivering one of their main responsibilities, and that we can see that the workforce are not only recognised but given the opportunity to share their thoughts on their experience, to have the opportunity for training where it is needed, and to have the guidance that they need to work together as a team on whom we rely to deliver all of our services.
Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Thompson. To deal with the appraisal question first, I share your concerns because I think the general response that one would give in this situation would be to say that if the performance in the directorate that I represent resources at 96%, the chances are that the 4% is made up of staff, either staff who are being appraised or staff doing the appraisals themselves, who are off work potentially over a period of time, and that's the reason it can't take place. Perhaps we could excuse a couple of percent for those reasons, but as Councillor Thompson has addressed, to excuse 23% for such reasons seems nonsensical or inaccurate. And I think that that's where the council needs to draw its focus. I mean, largely speaking, the service areas in question where appraisals are not up to the standard that Councillor Thompson talks about are where we have staff who, for want of a better term, don't spend their days sat at a desk in Redcar and Cleveland House. There's great work that does take place with the staff who do, but it's the staff who are out there in terms of kind of social work and the staff who work in the care sector, etc., who are harder occasionally to get meetings with, or their managers who work in the services are harder to do so. But I do agree that the performance is not up to scratch. I think two things that could help in this regard. One, from a resources perspective at the council, the use of the Skillgate system is coming online and all appraisals will be tracked on it. I think that should make it easier for appraisals to take place anywhere and be logged at any time. So that's a positive. And the second thing is, thanks to Councillor Thompson, the work that the scrutiny committee is about to commence. So I think in June there's going to be a special committee or a standard committee with a special item that looks into this, so that hopefully we can have these discussions in a bit more depth. But I do share your concerns. In terms of the senior management review, this sits largely with the leader of the council. Obviously we've had phase 1 of that review, but phase 2, as Councillor Thompson suggests, is something that we need to surface a little more potentially for members than has been surfaced at this point. So I'm happy to have that conversation with the leader when he is back in terms of his sickness. So thank you for the questions.
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Massey, for your report. My question relates to paragraph 2.4 in your report, which relates to the use of AI within the council, and also specifically magic notes. I was actually at an event for Practice Week last Thursday, and the social workers on my table were actually talking about magic notes. And one of them actually mentioned, and this was corroborated by other people on the table, that they do save time, but that actually, occasionally, magic notes makes things up, which they haven't said, which is not incorporated in their report, nor should it be incorporated within their report, in relation to the people that they're actually discussing, talking to, and providing information on. What I wanted to ask was, is there any possibility, I don't know the answer to this, whether the Magic Notes programme can be refined so that it doesn't do this, doesn't sort of pluck things out of the air, so to speak. I don't know whether it's bought in as a package or whether it's just part of Microsoft, or, as I say, whether we would have any facility to actually iron out these apparent kinks in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes, and again, congratulations on your election. I think it's an interesting question. I mean, in my personal or professional life, I don't use Magic Notes because I'm not a social worker, but I do use other AI programs. And one thing that we're keen to ensure from my perspective is that the simple version of this is there are 2 types of AI programs. The standard large language model that pulls anything from anywhere, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, and a closed model. And effectively, Magic Notes should operate on a closed model, which means we can teach it, but it can't just look out to the wider world to make up a response. Which is the risk is if you've ever done this on AI, just keep asking it a question, and eventually it will make up an answer, if it doesn't know. And that's one thing that obviously in a highly regulated area we need to completely avoid. What I will ask, because this is slightly outside of my portfolio area, but the IT part is very much within it, I will ask John Bullman for a bit of play around with this, and I'll see what I can find out. But I think the feedback from the workers is really useful, and I hope that's shared more widely, because I think it's vital to learn from these tools, because as you say, they can save time, but equally we have to make sure that things are accurate. There always needs to be human intervention at one point. There needs to be human verification at the end, and there needs to be human prompt at the beginning. It's making sure that loop works correctly. But I think it's a good point. Thank you for raising it, and I will certainly take that away with IT.
Thank you, Councillor Massey, for your report. Are we all happy to accept the report? Thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry. Apologies, 2 more speakers have just popped up. Councillor Leroy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No one can accuse the council of not having a sense of humour under 3.3, carbon literacy training. They won the bronze award, and one has to question, how many incinerators do you have to approve for gold? We were all told to clean out yoghurt pots while they emit 450,000 tonnes from an incinerator. That's not required. Great show. You need that carbon literacy training, one would say. I'm going to go into 4.6, and it talks about value for money, and I'd just like to understand what steps are being taken. It's only mentioned in a paragraph there, but that really is an indictment, and was totally foreseeable when we go through the turf fiasco, that they weren't going to achieve value for money status. The due diligence was somewhat lacking. So what strategic steps are being taken to address the value for money concerns? Thank you.
Councillor Massey.
So thank you for the question. I think in a general sense, what the paragraph that the member refers to in terms of 4.5 and thereabouts, in terms of the contract procedure rules, is what's going to come to us at the next council meeting, or the next one, which is in about May. So there's going to be a slight change to some of the procurement thresholds, which basically change things quite simply in terms of having 3 particular areas. So very large contracts absolutely have to go to the market. Medium-sized contracts can be discussed potentially and targeted locally. A large contract cannot be just sent out to people that the council knows or who supplies it. They have to go out to a wider tender. The middle does not. It can be particularly targeted. And at the lower end, 3 quotes can suffice. And we've slightly changed some of the thresholds that exist there, but it's not particularly huge, and it's largely to align with the Procurement Act that came into force. So in terms of value for money, that's what takes place in terms of the council's procedures that councillors need to be minded of. I think in terms of generally, value for money is obviously a key component of the public sector and public life. But I think I'll return to one thing that I've mentioned previously in debates about this, which is that one of the most important things, in my opinion, as a member of this council, whoever we are, or wherever or whoever we represent, is to recognise that we are not experts on everything. We are people who rely on advice, and in the decisions that the councillor raises previously, effectively the decision that was made was relied upon from professional advice. And of course the councillor is more than welcome to disagree with that advice, but I think the decision that I made, and certainly the cabinet made at the time, was to listen to the legal advice and financial advice, and indeed the health advice that existed in terms of ensuring value for money for finance, but also in terms of health for the health outputs. And of course things can be debated and things can be discussed, but effectively as councillors we use our intelligence with the intelligence of our officers to come up with a decision. Members can disagree, there's a vote about this, but that's how we arrived at that decision and how I believe value for money can be sought out through any contract that the council puts forward. But thank you for the question.
Councillor Martin.
Excuse me, afternoon. Yeah, it's just a quick question regarding obviously appraisals. Appraisals are extremely important in all sort of businesses. Obviously it lets the staff members and obviously the workforce know how people are doing. I'm just wondering, is there any sort of aspect on this where portfolio holders and cabinet members could get some sort of appraisals as such, just to make sure that they are actually doing their jobs correctly?
Councillor Massey.
Just to clarify, and sorry to come back, are you asking if cabinet members should be or can be appraised? Yes, okay. I just wanted to clarify that. So, in essence, I think the view about this would be that technically the line manager of a cabinet member is the leader of the council, and the leader of the council under the constitution of this council has the ability to remove a cabinet member from post. And obviously the council, who sits above the leader of the council, has the ability to remove the leader of the council from post. So effectively, an appraisal system does not work as formally as it may do for a member of staff, but those checks and balances are in place within the council's constitution to remove a sitting cabinet member, or indeed to remove the leader. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to ask a question that I probably expect you're not going to be able to answer today, but it's just coincidental that I noticed it while driving down the A1 the other day. The CCTV camera car that we use for enforcement was on the back of a low loader driving past Leeds. Can you tell me whether or not that, as it's a fleet vehicle, it falls under your area anyway, so I'm asking it now, but I know you probably won't be able to answer it. Is that CCTV vehicle now gone? Are we getting it replaced? Is the lease up? Has it just gone back? Are we getting another one? And what really we could probably do with some information on whether or not it was value for money in terms of whether or not the purchase and getting it and everything else has been worthwhile. But at the same time, I think it was always a great tool for us to be able to get parking away from the schools, which I think all councillors from all areas where you've got schools in your wards, it was a fantastic tool, and I just don't feel like the council's maybe used it to the best of its ability. But if you can answer that question, that'd be much appreciated.
Councillor Massey.
Yes, I appreciate the priming of the answer that no one could possibly know the answer, you know, where is every possible member of our team or where is every possible vehicle. But myself and I believe Councillor Bendelover, apologies for putting him on the spot, will kind of take this forward because he won't know directly but will know certainly the service area in a bit more detail. So happy to take that away and ask the question, why was it on a low loader?
All right, thank you everyone. Is there any more questions for Councillor Massey on this report? No? No? Okay, thank you. And we'll move on then to item 8. Item 9, consider reports. This is a debate. These items are for debate. There will be a mover, seconder for these. So the first report is a review of proportionality and distribution of seats. So can I have someone propose for that? Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Second item is a report from the Chief Executive Electoral Returning Officer on the Community Government's Review. Can I ask someone to move and second the report? Thank you, Councillor Hargreaves. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Is the report agreed? Yeah, thank you. We move on to the consideration of motions. Again, these are debate. We need a proposer and seconder for these. We only have one motion. Proposed by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Grogan. Councillor Kerr, would you like to put the motion?
Yeah. Sorry, introduce it now. Yeah? Yeah, okay. Right, okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for listening to our motion today. Councillor Palliser's report to Council in January, it highlighted a number of external pressures bearing down on business, such as the rise in minimum wage was mentioned and the rise in employers' national insurance contributions. I suggested then at that meeting that we should add business rates to that already long list of risks that are affecting our local businesses. The retail, hospitality and leisure sector is facing a perfect storm. The 40% COVID discount ends next week, and a new way of calculating rateable value means much higher property valuations, which will translate into significant increases in business rates. Pubs are facing a massive 76% hike over the next 3 years, and for hotels it's over 100%. For online warehouses, in comparison, the increase is 16%, and for large supermarkets only 8%. So that's very difficult to understand. There are caps on some of these increases in the first year, though they are fairly minimal and they are not what the industry was expecting. The Federation of Small Businesses says the changes will mean an average increase of 52% for high street premises. The UK Hospitality Trade Group, this is a group that I have been working with in preparing the motion. The Federation of Small Businesses says the changes will mean an average increase of the UK Hospitality Trade Group estimates that 30,000 businesses are at risk of closure. That's the group I've been working with. And 2,000 pubs have closed since COVID. Pubs need thriving high streets, and thriving high streets need pubs. Now, all this seems to be pushing back on what we have been trying to do with our significant capital programme to improve our town centres. Monies that were allocated by the previous government, the Luff in Gisborough, for example, and in Loftus, and Redcar town deal. Now, giant plant pots and even the really successful heritage scheme in Gisborough, they won't cut it unless we have a friendly environment for business. Now, what can councils do? This is a question I was asked by a businessman in Gisborough. What can councils do? And it is the right question for us. We could do very little. We could be passive in the face of government policy, or we could be innovative and proactive and pick a fight on behalf of our residents and local businesses. So today we are asking for emergency help for hospitality businesses where it's required in the form of a business rates relief scheme for genuine local business. Now there are two schemes that I've identified, the hardship relief scheme and the local discretionary relief scheme, and there may be others. That the Cabinet member, Councillor Massey, brings a report to Cabinet setting out how this might work, and that we work with local business to do this, and that we write to government and our two MPs asking for a review of business rates and how a more sustainable solution might be found that would create a more friendly environment for business, and in the short term we ask how additional support might be provided. So please, I hope you can all support our motion today. Let's not be passive. Let's pick a fight on behalf of our local business and get behind them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Councillor Massey.
Apologies, but we want to move an amendment to this motion, and I believe Liz on her last council meeting has that. So we'll allow that to be circulated, and entirely up to the Mayor whether you would like. So Councillor Richardson will second, but do you want a little recess for people to read? That is more than okay. I'm happy to start whenever you want.
Thank you very much, Councillor Massey. Yeah. I'm going to call you in a minute. Councillor King, I was about to call you, but this is, yes. Councillor King, but you, yeah.
But I don't know the procedure. Do we debate Councillor Massey's first, or can I have clarification
because
from the
he's the
monitoring
first,
officer?
and we'll debate yours second.
Thank you.
We've just had this quite substantive bit of paperwork. Can I ask that we have a 5-minute recess at least, then we can have a discussion in our group, if that's okay?
Yes. So can we have someone second that, please? Yeah, everyone happy to do that? Yeah, I think there would be. We'll have a 5-minute break to digest the amendments. Of the time and all the questions we have today, so I ask members to take their seats so we can debate the amendments. And we have the first amendment from Councillor Pallas. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to start by echoing something Councillor Salvin said to me at the last meeting, which was very kind and appropriate, which is there's nothing personal in this. We know exactly where you're coming from. We hope that you have a bit of an understanding about where we're coming from, which is that we recognise that businesses in our communities, particularly local businesses and particularly small businesses, are struggling 100%. But also from this side, we have to say, as the leadership of the council, that the previous meeting that we had in this chamber, this council agreed almost unanimously, with the exception of one and obviously abstentions, to pass the budget, which included within it £18.4 million of exceptional financial support. And the government is fully expectant of us to use all available methods to mitigate it, A, being as high as 18.4 million, and C, to ensure that we don't ask for any more. Indeed, we can't ask for any more. The strings that come with the 18.4 million, in my opinion and in the opinion of the finance director, make the motion as was presented, unfortunately for us, not something that we can support because of the strings that come with the exceptional financial support. So our suggestion in the amendment is effectively to try and shift some of the questions and asks onto two different things. So one is to continue with, and we've kept kind of the items 4 and 5 in the largest sense, writing to our local members of parliament, explaining the situation which we can get council staff to support with, and Mike Oyson has been in touch with me even this morning, telling me some of the data that sits behind some of our small businesses and reliefs. Write to our MPs who can lobby to government to try and ensure a better deal for our businesses and small businesses in Redcar and Cleveland. And secondly, also to do a bit of a deep dive into those businesses. What support are they achieving? What support could they achieve? Are they missing out on anything? So locally, we think we can control those two things. We can lobby government and we can look into the small businesses to see what national schemes exist. But what we didn't want to happen, and again, nothing personal, it's nothing to do with this being Labour or Conservative, this is just a financial thing. We don't want to give any false hope to businesses out there by passing the original motion, in our view, because effectively to pass the original motion, although there's a 3-month time scale, suggests that the council could do something where financially we believe it is impossible for the council to do something. So in 3 months' time, I would return here or the cabinet with a report that says, could the council legally do something? Yes. Can the council afford to do something? No. Can the council afford to do something with the proviso of the exceptional financial support rules? No. Sorry. And that, unfortunately, might allow 3 months in the interim where small businesses in the community could genuinely think they're about to get something, and I can almost guarantee that they would not locally from the council. So that's the reason for the motion. I won't read it out, I'll move it. The amendment to the motion, I'll read it as is and invite comments. I can't come back to answer them, as Steve has reminded me, but we invite debate from this point.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Second, do you wish to speak? Or reserve right to speak? That's right. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to speak briefly on the amendment, as we've got obviously the main one to talk about if it goes through. As a group, we've just had a little conversation outside, and that we would prefer, if we're going to support the amendment, that point 1 is withdrawn. We can support point 2 and we can support point 3. As we believe it's about a political choice and political will. If there's political will to do something for local businesses in the borough, it could be achieved. We know that other councils in the country do similar schemes, or they have done similar motions in terms of this to do something over the next year or so. So our position is that if the amendment is staying as is, we won't be supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Salvin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just think this is important. Businesses all across the country are struggling. I said in my budget speech last month that 120,000 jobs were lost last year. And why are they being lost, Mr. Mayor? They're being lost because of national insurance rises on employers. They're being lost because these business rates that are coming in, and employers are already thinking about, where does my next payday come from? Whilst I get that it's not Councillor Massey's fault that his government have put him and that council and the rest of the council in this position, I think to accept what they want would be doing a disservice to our residents and a disservice to our landlords and restaurant owners who are really, really struggling at this time. So I will be rejecting this amendment.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak before I bring you back in?
Well, Wayne's proposed an amendment to the amendment.
I thought, yeah, sorry, Councillor Davies, I thought you were asking me straight.
Mr. Mayor, I asked the proposer of the amendment if he would wish to remove point 1 from his amendment, then we would support it. That's all I asked. I didn't propose an amendment or anything. I just asked the proposer of the amendment if he wished to withdraw item 1 from his amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, for clarifying that. Councillor Leroyd.
I would be supporting the amendment. I think in the original motion, when you look at it, the Cabinet explores the creation of emergency discretionary business rates relief. The key word there is emergency and discretionary. So we're talking about a struggling business. And then in the second one, it talks about prioritising support for genuinely independent and locally operated hospitality businesses. The large chains are able to essentially eliminate their corporate tax through various chicaneries and holes in the Finance Act since 1972, where small and medium-sized businesses are unable to do that. And if we're able to offer them a slight advantage to be able to compete against these companies, these larger companies, of which we should have no sympathy for, because many of them will move their profits to tax havens, as many of us will be aware. There is a bus company doing that at the moment in our area. We're giving a mechanism, a local mechanism, to allow local businesses to thrive. And local businesses will return a higher percentage of their revenue to the local population. And that will help our local economy, which is struggling. For example, if we look at the South Bank ward, and we look at the period since 2017, they have seen a 4% reduction in the median wage compared to the UK national. So we are in a local economic crisis, and then a national one as a result of austerity. So I will be rejecting the motion and supporting the original, amendment to supporting the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Leroyd. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak before seconder? Yeah.
Now, yeah, okay. I didn't know how the system worked, because Councillor Massey was willing to remove.
Sorry, Councillor Massey wished to respond before.
On a point of personal explanation. No, I'm not summing up, but on a point of personal explanation, I would be happy to withdraw item 1 because I don't think that it would change the amendment in terms of the fact that it's not promising something that we think that we can't deliver. It's just subtracting something. I would have no issue with moving item 1 if the seconders did agree.
You should say yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Can we?
We keep the original paragraph 1, and that means we're only deleting paragraph 2 and 3 and replacing with 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, if there's no more speakers, Councillor Kerr has the right to reply to the amendment. Yeah. There's no right to sum up on the... if you wish to speak on the amendment, because you've reserved the right.
No, I did. wish to speak on the amendment if we're not doing that. Thanks for the clarification. I can't say it as eloquently or put it across as factually as Councillor Massey does. He's very good at that, but I just wanted to reaffirm that we don't want to peddle false hope. There is no money there to create this fund. So, you know, 14 years of your government cutting this council's budget leaves no money there to do anything with. You say, here we go, but you're well aware it happened. It didn't not happen. We're not in, you know, a film where you just delete the past. It happened and it's true, and there isn't any money. So I don't know where you expect it to be found to create a fund that only applies to one section of businesses across the borough, and then everybody else who doesn't fit that criteria to be happy with it. So, you know, that's all I've got to say really, is that clearly what we're seeking is a Facebook headline that the council will come out and help, and 3 months later a statement from the administration that it can't or won't. So, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Kerr, you may sum up.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just very briefly, I am surprised that the administration is rejecting the opportunity to leave no stone unturned in exploring every avenue to support our local business. And that's all that we are asking today, to explore every single avenue to get behind our local businesses on which our high streets depend. There are schemes which I mentioned, the hardship relief scheme and the local discretionary relief scheme, and as Councillor Davis says, and I agree with him, we need the political will to do everything that we can. Thank you. So we will certainly be rejecting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Right. We will now move to a vote on the amendment. Can I ask those in favour to please raise their hands? Can I ask 14? Can I ask those against the amendment to please raise their hands? That motion is defeated. We move back to the original. Now, can I just check whether we got another agreed amendment?
We move to the next speaker, Mr Mayor, which was Councillor King, I believe.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors Kerr and Grogan. I completely understand why this motion has been brought forward. Anyone who spends time in our towns can see the pressure hospitality businesses are under at the moment. Pubs, cafes, small venues, they're all part of the fabric of our communities, and none of us want to see them struggling. However, I do have a little bit of sympathy with what Councillor Massey said, as we do need to be honest as to what sits within this council's control and what does not. And the business rates themselves are normally set nationally. We don't determine the level of taxation, we administer it. So this motion cannot change the underlying pressure that businesses are facing, because really that sits with government. But there are things that we can do. In theory, we can offer discretionary relief, but that's not without consequences. What I need, and I think the 3 months will give, is a time to drill down to exactly what the direct cost to this council will be, at a time when we already know our financial position is extremely challenging, with significant pressures in areas like children's services and our reserves at very low levels. There's also practical considerations. Designing a scheme like this is not simple. It would require officer time across finance, legal, revenue teams to develop the criteria, ensure that it's lawful, administer the applications and monitor it properly. It's a real resource commitment. A practical example of pressures we're already facing in the current backlog is the blue badge renewals, which is coming up later as a question, which is around 4 months due to resource constraints. That's the statutory service supporting some of our most vulnerable residents, and it's already under strain because we don't have the resources to cover it. This obviously is adding another resource, which I agree is important. So when we talk about officers taking on additional work to design and deliver a discretionary scheme, I think it's really important that we're honest about what that means in practice, because capacity isn't unlimited and prioritisation is unavoidable. Once you start down this route, there's wider questions. If we support one sector, quite understandably, others will ask why not them. Retail, care providers and small businesses more broadly are all facing pressures of their own. So for me, the key issue here is managing expectations. It's one thing to ask for a report, and I have no issues with exploring every single option we can to keep our small business viable. I'm a small business owner myself. But we must be careful not to give local businesses the impression that meaningful financial support is definitely coming their way if our reality to be able to deliver that is limited. I'm more than happy to support the continued lobbying of government, as I think this is where it lies, but we need to proceed locally with a clear understanding of our powers and our constraints. We often talk about supporting local businesses, but we also have to think about responsibility and fairness for our residents. There's a large group of people in this borough who are quite simply just getting by. Their income goes on essentials, housing, food and heating, and there's very little left, if anything, at the end of the month. For many of them, visiting pubs, cafes or restaurants is not something that they can afford to do. So I really think we need to ask ourselves this difficult but necessary question. Is it fair that those residents, through their council tax, could end up subsidising hospitality businesses that they themselves cannot afford to use? That, in effect, is what a discretionary relief would mean. It's not government money, it's local resources. I'm not dismissing the challenges faced by hospitality. They're real and they're serious, but so are the pressures on our residents and on the services we provide to them. So at a time when we're already facing significant financial strain and making difficult decisions about essential services, we need to be careful about creating new commitments that shift limited resources away from core needs. This, if done, must be done with absolute clarity about who ultimately bears the costs, the additional cost of officer time required to deliver it, and whether it's a fair and reasonable use of public money in the current climate. On that basis, Chair, I'm just going to propose a small amendment, because I do think, as Councillor Kerr said, no stone should be left unturned, but on the other hand, this is our residents' money that we would be committing to business. So I'm going to request that the Cabinet Member for Resources brings a report to Cabinet within 3 months, setting out the recommendations, eligibility criteria, financial implications and resource implications for the Council. And the bit I've added is including officer time and capacity and options for such a scheme. I just think that helps us look at it from all points of view and be transparent and clear about what's involved. Thank you.
Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor. Do I have to leave in 5 minutes? I don't think so. I think. Okay. Yeah. Do we have the amount? Yep. Circulation? Yeah. We've had a pause for a second there. Yeah. Oh, for 5 minutes. Yeah, yeah. Can I ask everybody, once the amendment is circulated, does everyone want another short break to review the amendment? I mean, because if so, someone needs to propose and second. You want to propose? Councillor Davies proposing it. Can I have a seconder, please? Can I have a second of Councillor Davies' proposal for a 5-minute break? Yes, thank you. Could I ask members to please return to their seats so we can debate the new motion? The amendment to the original motion. Has Councillor Joy back now? Yep. I was going to ask. I was looking for Councillor Joy to ask if she wants to speak. Reserve the right to speak. I'm sure she does. Yes. I'll assume she does. But right, so we can move on. Councillor Leroyd.
Thank you. Considering so we're speaking on the amendment. So confused. This is the amendment. Councillor King's right. Okay. So the resource and implications for the council, including obviously time and capacity. If we look at 3 and we look at the exact wording of it, it says, request the cabinet member for resources brings a report to cabinet within 3 months, setting out recommendations, and this is the key bit, eligibility criteria, financial implications and options. There's nowhere in there which says that it would be funded by the public sector. So for example, the options, one of them could be, we will set up a local investment fund. We would guarantee 5% return after 10 years, and we would keep the fees low. And then that would encourage those who have benefited from inequality to put into the investment fund. So there are people in this area who sat on amounts of cash who have done quite well out of inequality. And then there are those who are struggling, and one of those sectors that's struggling is local hospitality. And I would say about the people who set up local hospitality, they maybe don't have the luxury of the luxury that I've had, for example, where I've got a very determined profession in a niche area, which is always going to give me a job for life. So these are individuals who've risked their own money to set something up, small cafes, for example, small bars, small eateries. And so the issue with them is that they are ultra sensitive to austerity. And austerity has been going on for 16 years now. And I've mentioned already about the average wage decline. So point 3 and the amendment of point 3, I judge it to be unnecessary to recap that you do have other options beyond the public sector. It's not saying commit money from the public sector. It's saying explore options, and I've already outlined one. So I won't be supporting the amendment. I still think the original motion is good.
Thank you, Councillor Leroyd. Councillor Massey.
Hello, I'm going to have one more go and then give up. So in essence, like my views on this, so the amendment to the motion still has the problems that I feel that the original motion has, and that's not to say the original motion doesn't have strengths, it does. Of course, we all want to support our local businesses, particularly in areas like retail, hospitality and leisure. Understandable. Of course, we should be doing everything we can with central government in order to make sure that those people are getting every penny that they should in terms of relief. But the challenges that we have, I think, locally, are the fact that we have 320 retail, hospitality or leisure businesses that do not get full or partial support from government. The council cannot take on the liability for 320 businesses potentially. And I know it says emergency, but there's still the risk that, in my opinion, as I said earlier, passing this motion or the amendment to this motion, which we're discussing now, has the risk that we're saying to people out there that this council is going to set up a scheme that could do X, Y, and Z, when the reality is that we cannot and likely will not. The problem that I have with the amended motion, which is similar, if not the same as the original motion, it mentions a discretionary business rate scheme. We can't create one. It mentions eligibility criteria. We don't have any. There can't be a scheme. It mentions options for such a scheme. There can't be a scheme. By passing this, in my opinion, we give the risk that we're telling these businesses, this thing's coming, it's on the horizon, a sunny day's approaching, when it's not. We can't possibly do this. The cost of it is too great. The cost we estimate potentially to support those 320 businesses would be over £1 million, but it's a bigger cost than just the 1.1 million. It's also the risk of the 18.4 that I mentioned earlier. We took 18.4 million of government financial support. We don't get that money at the start of the financial year. We get it at the end of the year if we've met the government's criteria. If we pass this and do this, it has the risk that we don't get it. So that's the reason that we won't be supporting the motion or the amendment to the motion which we're discussing now. The group, we've had a discussion. Our view is that we have to abstain on this particular item because we think that there are clearly benefits to this motion, and my apologies that my amendment didn't cover them perhaps well enough, in terms of there is a real need to make sure that we are preventing businesses from going into distress, and that we're doing all we can to find the government schemes those small businesses can access. But the council cannot do anything beyond those two things, which is what we have a problem with the amended motion and the original motion. I'm not going to get up again, so if this passes and it goes to the motion, that's me done. But again, nothing personal, it's just from a financial perspective, not a political one. That's our view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Councillor Grogan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a brief comment from myself. I am one of them small businesses that actually deal with other small businesses on our high streets and in the industrial units and such as, and I speak to them every single day, and I know the struggles and problems that they're all having, from the energy crisis, cost of living crisis, obviously even the extended Iranian conflict going on that's causing energy, petrol, diesel prices going up. All these small businesses are actually suffering and struggling, and majority of those individuals that run them businesses are Redcar and Cleveland council taxpayers. They live within our borough. They're our friends, they're our family, they're our neighbours, they're our community. And I do feel like if the word is explore, we're not asking, we're exploring the opportunities if we can do anything to help them. So I will be backing the amended motion because I do think it offers up to a little bit more of a wider scope because, like I said, the leisure industry and the pubs and clubs have had it really, really tough. But I think it's not just them; it's the florists that have to do a second job just to sustain a living. So yeah, small, medium enterprise businesses, and again, like Councillor Lloyd said, we're exploring, we're going to find some ideas. It's up to obviously the cabinet member and their team to see if we can get any funding from private enterprises or whatever, just to see what we can do. So I will be backing this motion, the amended motion, and there's no promises, but if we look like we explore is the key word. Let's just give, not hope, but let them know that we're listening to them and we understand their plight and their problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grogan. Councillor Joy, you were in this chamber, so I've made an assumption that you do wish to speak as a seconder. Now, would you like to speak now or after the other speakers?
I'm happy to speak now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that all right?
Councillor Joy.
Okay, thank you. Apologies, I wasn't in the chamber. Yeah, in support of this amendment, I think what we'll try and do is take the heat out of what is essentially in danger of becoming political ping pong between two major parties, but actually, as the amendment seeks to talk about alleviating pressures that face lots of different businesses, and what everyone's good at, pointing to one particular type of business, and none of us have a monopoly on knowing particular businesses. So this seeks to investigate, and I think actually Councillor Grogan took the words right off my mouth. I put this amendment is a mechanism to investigate. Now that might be creative ways, but if there is hope, we should pursue it, and we should be looking to see what we can do. And that's all this motion seeks to do, is to look to investigate in an evidence-based way. It won't provide, I totally understand the false hope. Nobody wants to give false hope, but this is just saying we all want to do better for our residents who are also business owners and our businesses who serve our residents. But we must balance our responsibilities as a local authority, and this amendment seeks to do that in as least invasive way on officers' time and resources as we can, while still seeking to do the best for businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having seen this in front of me now in black and white and listened to Councillor Massey, who I admire greatly in his conduct of financial affairs, as I think I said at the last council meeting, I have to say, and I think I disagree with the rest of my group on this, that I think I will vote against what's being proposed. I think it's building up false hope, and also we are committing a lot of officers' time to something which only has a 1% chance of success. So I can't go along with this.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy enough, and I think most of our group are happy enough to support the amendment. As I said before, it's about political will, having that political will to do something. We've had schemes in the past So we know that schemes can be done. For those that don't understand, I know that Councillor Massey tried talking about it, but I think it's just worth emphasising it in layman's terms, that business rates, as the council is just the collections officer for the government or for Parliament, the businesses pay the council the business rates, and the same could be said for things like council tax as well, but we'll try not to go into that too much. The council gets all the money in, council sends all the money off, the council gets their little cut on the basis that we've done everything that we can and all the money's come in depending on how much money's been brought in. So we all understand that that's how the process works. And when I said about political will, if a scheme is designed and the council design a scheme, or they use a scheme that they've used before, or they come up with a different scheme, what happens then is the council are then got to put that money into that scheme to make sure that the money that comes in still continues to go to the government, and then we continue to get our share that comes back. So schemes can be done, and we talk about earlier on about the fact that the Councillor Richardson said about the fact that there's no money there and that we shouldn't be promising things. However, we know that, for instance, the Festival of Thrift was given some funding to bring back. If the decision was that we would have funded something in terms of a council tax, a business rates relief scheme, we could have utilised that money, for instance, in terms of giving some sort of relief scheme for what's being proposed here today in the motion. So when you're talking about political will, it's all about political choices, and unfortunately, when you're in this chamber, things do have to be political. You have to be political about everything when it comes to council, and ultimately, it's about the decisions that we take, whether we take them in here or they get taken over there with cabinet when they're having their meetings and stuff, and what they're deciding to do. So for us, we're quite happy to support the amendment, but I think this needs to go further. I think you'll remember when we were in the budget meeting, I did a call out to all the group leaders about working together, formulating a plan that went on about local taxation and how we could change the way that it's done, because it's so grossly unfair for people that live, especially in Redcar and Cleveland. I think someone's posted today on a Gisborough Facebook page, I don't know if anyone's seen it, showing the disparity between council tax for people in a Band D that live in Redcar and Cleveland compared to someone who lives in Kensington and Chelsea. And the difference was about £1,000 a year. Unless we do something to challenge the basis on which local taxation is done, we're just going to continue going around in this vicious cycle of we're never ever going to be in a position to give our residents the benefits of what we need to be giving them. So for me, I think the whole thing needs to go a lot further, and we need to be challenging the valuations office, we need to be challenging the government to come up with a proper scheme of local taxation that's fair for everybody, because it shouldn't matter where you live in this country to how much more or less you pay. It should be something that is a God-given right to everybody that lives in Redcar and Cleveland, that they are treated fairly, and the same could be said about loads of different places around the country. So again, I send that offer to all leaders of the groups in this chamber. If you genuinely want to do something for the betterment of your residents in this borough, contact me and let's get something done. Let's go to Parliament, let's speak to our MPs, let's force the issue, because if we don't, it's only one person's voice, it's maybe just our group's voice, but if we don't do anything to change it, it's just going to continue and things are just going to carry on getting worse. And before long, we might not have any businesses, we might not have anything nice to be able to shout about, because we're that busy focusing on all the things that we're never going to be able to solve because we haven't got the capacity to do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Southers.
Yeah, it's just a point of clarification from the monitoring officer about this. There are a lot of people in the room who've got small businesses. I keep thinking of different people, and I know there's a green form and so on. But are we in any sort of jeopardy if we've got a small business in terms of debating or voting on this motion?
I would say not, Councillor Southers, because the motion itself, if carried, only talks about exploring a scheme, so there's no direct benefit arising from it.
Okay, if there is no one else wishing to speak on the motion, for the amendment to the motion, could we have a vote? So can I ask everyone who's in favour of the motion, of the amendment? Oh, sorry, Councillor Kerr, you need to, yeah, if you want to sum up.
Doesn't get to sum up. It's the proposer of the original motion has a right of reply.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have anything to add because we will be supporting the amendment to the motion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. In which case, we're now at a stage where we can vote on the amendment, on this amendment to the original motion. Could I have a show of hands of those in favour of the amendment? The motion is carried. Sorry, not the motion, the amendment is carried. Then we go back to the... Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Can I ask for those who wish to vote against to raise their hands, please? Those who wish to abstain? But the motion is, the amendment is passed. And so we go back to the original, amended motion. And is it Councillor King? No. Well, are there any more speakers that wish to speak on the motion as amended by the last amendment? So we then vote on the substantive motion. So we now need. Right, if nobody wishes to speak, then Councillor King gets to sum up.
I think everything's been said. Round the boat, it's always funny when we have motions and amendments of motions. So. Yeah, I just think all we've done by adding them few extra words is just make sure that, let's say, in their words, no stones left unturned, and we look at everything without giving false hope. But there's been various suggestions made in the chamber today that I'd not thought of, others might not have thought of. Let's just look at them all, take a few months, and see what we can come back with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. And we move to a vote on the substantive motion as amended by the amendment. So could I ask for a show of hands on those in favour of the substantive motion? Thank you. Can I ask for a show of hands on those against the substantive motion? It's carried. Thank you. The motion is carried. The substantive motion is carried. No. Sorry, Councillor Kerr, you don't. It's because it's a person who the amendment was the last person to speak before the vote. So if you want to clarify, please.
Just to clarify, Councillor Kerr, if an amendment succeeds, then effectively the person who proposed the amendment takes possession of the ball, so they sum up.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Can we move on to item 11, which is the following changes have been received and circulated. Can this be agreed, the change of membership of committees? Could I ask on the Labour councillors, we need a name to be confirmed for climate and environment. Is there a name proposed now, or could? Is anyone? No. If there isn't, then could I ask, perhaps, if you have somebody, could you let Democratic Services know? No. That could change it, but we accept it as is. Thank you. Right, we move on to item 12, which is questions from members of the council. Now, we have we had 18 questions have been received. This will take approximately 3 hours worth of time, so it would be helpful if members will take the questions as read. Now, in the absence of Councillor Pallister, questions 8 and 12 will be answered by Councillor Richardson, and question 17 will be answered by Councillor Quatermain, as he is the relevant portfolio holder. Was that a question, Kenny? So,
yeah. Sorry, Councillor Kay, I'm not sure I caught what you were asking.
Right, I ask a question, cabinet member answers it, I'm then entitled to a supplementary question.
Yes.
Yes, now,
yes.
So I'm going to be allowed to ask that.
Yes,
yes,
as long as it arises out of the first question or the answer. Yes.
So, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I also note that in the absence of Councillor Van, and I ask her to resubmit questions at the next council meeting. Right, so we move on to question 1 from Councillor Grogan to Councillor Bendelow.
To ask the questions from Councillor Levin on her behalf.
Okay, yes. Councillor Hart, we'll come to you when we read these things. Thank you. So you will be answering questions 6 and 7. Right, so we move on to question 1. Question from Councillor Grogan to Councillor Bendelow, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods.
Are you allowed to appoint another party member to ask a question when you were not in that political party?
I'm advised we can't say a reason why not. Councillor Grogan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not going to read out the whole question. It just seems surprising. 18 questions says a lot to it today. I have to say, while I'm here, it's my son's 18th as well, my youngest son. So I'm just going to, well, I want to get it in there. I'm not going to read it all out, Councillor Bendelow. Obviously, you've took over the portfolio since I've done it. Basically, it's the last. Have you spoke to Beyond Housing about the agreement that's currently in place? Is there any potential compromise on that agreement?
Councillor Bendelow.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. Should I keep it brief as well? An existing agreement between the Council and Beyond Housing regarding the claims of fly tipping on some Beyond Housing open space. Unfortunately, that agreement was unclear, open to interpretation, and led to ongoing delays and inconsistency in service delivery. Upon taking his role, Councillor Brooke made it a priority to resolve these issues and along with council officers entered into formal negotiations with Beyond Housing, a comprehensive proposal was put forward that would have allowed the council to collect and manage fly tipped and litter on Beyond Housing land as well as our own, provide a more streamlined and consistent service for residents. Beyond Housing made a business decision not to proceed with this proposal and instead chose to establish their own in-house teams to deal directly with waste and environmental issues on land as their responsible landowner. We continue to work in strong partnership with Beyond Housing, supporting them where required, including through the enforcement action and joint community clean-ups initiatives. Regular dialogue remains in place and the council's door remains open should Beyond Housing wish to revisit the formal arrangement in the future. And since I've took over, when I did my handover at Councillor Brook, I've asked the officers to approach Beyond Housing again to see if we can establish that, because I'm similar to Ward where you are, in South Bank, we get a lot of fly tipping. Whose land does it belong to? I think we need one organisation to clear that waste, but it has to be right for the council as well. Thank you.
Councillor Grogan, do you have a supplementary question?
That's great news that you've kept the dialogue open and you're actually pursuing to try and keep it going. Like we said, I've other issues in Grangetown. My mother lives in Grangetown, so I CC'd you in that as well as the ward councillors at the time. And also, I'd like to give a little bit of a praise where I've seen today in the media that we've actually got a prosecution on fly tipping in Grangetown. I was shocked because prior to this question getting asked, I also asked how many prosecutions as an authority we've actually had in a 12-month period. That one's the first one in 12 months on fly tipping. We need to do better. You've done it once. Let's keep it going, the good work. Let's get the cameras up. Let's get these people caught. It's costing us thousands, and keep up the good work. But let's just engage more with everything else. It's not a question, but I would like you to pursue more prosecutions. 1 in 12 months is not good enough, in my opinion.
Councillor Bendela.
Yeah, the one in Great Grangetown was a massive success, but in my own ward, there's been a number of fines issued, of £1,000 fines. These fines getting issued in most wards, but in regards to prosecution, it all depends if they pay the fine and stuff like that. But I think in my ward alone, I think there's been about 3 or 4 issued recently. So we are, wherever possible, we will take robust action to deal with fly tippers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendela. Can we move on to question 2? A question from Councillor Martin to Councillor Brown, Leader of the Council, which Councillor Richardson will be responding to. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, afternoon. I'd just like to, obviously, Councillor Brown's not here today, so thank you for answering the question anyway. I won't read the question out because obviously it's pretty explanatory. I'd just like your response, please.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have a response. I don't run Alex's Facebook page. I don't know if he deleted your comment. I saw the email back saying his PA didn't pick it up, and I can only apologise if that is the case. And I don't have any more information, so sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. Councillor Martin, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. Today's questions in council is proof that the Labour-led council portfolio holders are poor at best at answering questions, because there's 18 questions here today for you guys. It shouldn't be a matter of if we email, CC, BCC or any other way, we should be receiving a response. We ask you questions from our residents. We don't ask you if you want to go for tea, if you want a cup of drinks, or anything like that. They are important matters. So we expect a response. If we have time to be with our residents, we should be getting a response from you guys. I mean, if the portfolio holders are busy, which is understandable, if your PA picks it up, we still should be getting some sort of response. So can we please just set up a process where it's standard practice for somebody to actually respond to our emails, to our questions from our residents? And instead of me apologising to Mr. Brown, would he like to apologise to Rector in Cleveland for the poor time frames taken for these blue badges to be sorted out? And I'd also like to know what is being done to speed up the blue badge process, and what have we done regarding contacting James Cook, for instance, where the waivers that Wrexham and Cleveland have been given out that have not been deed to?
Councillor Richardson.
I don't know what waivers they are. I know they've put in place the measure that all current existing blue badges are extended. I don't know. I'd have to go away and find out for you. I don't know. The leader's inbox is monitored by his peer. It receives hundreds, if not thousands, of emails a day. He would have a full-time job if that's all he did, sat and read every one and checked to respond to. I know I go through mine daily, and if you email me or you copy me in, you'll get a response, but I know Alex's inbox doesn't work like that. I can contact Lucy and ask her that if councillors are copied in to flag that up and direct it to him. But I think, you know, the amount of emails, mine, for example, must get 30, 40 a day, most of which are spam, but I do go through them myself. But the leader would only be doing that and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Clark, I'm told you can't, not really. So, can we move on, please? Move to question 3. Question from Councillor Kerr to Councillor Massey, Cabinet Member for Corporate Resources. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The transformation programme, particularly asset sales, can you please offer any insight into why we are so far behind our savings targets? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Massey.
Thank you. So the position that you highlight in terms of the transformation programme is largely my question to do with asset sales. I know there's a further question for Councillor Southers. It's not a result of not achieving the figures, it's a result of not achieving them this year. So unfortunately, it's a slippage as opposed to something that just will never happen in the future. So the good thing is that we're still going to achieve nearly $1.5 million of sales in the financial year that we're just about to leave, 25-26. But largely speaking, this is due to one particularly big site that unfortunately the sale for which fell through. And although we had marketed that site, had a purchase for that site, unfortunately the purchaser had some financial difficulties and the sale couldn't go through. And obviously, as we've discussed a little today, the council has to assure that we get best value, so we can't just sell things off because we need cash. We have to make sure that we get a return on a public asset effectively. So we hope that that asset will be sold in the next financial year, so it's more of a delay rather than something that's gone hugely wrong this year. And the figure for next year has been uplifted to take account of that, so the figure for next year for asset sales is 3 million. But I hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary question?
Just a comment, really. Thank you, Councillor Massey. It was a recommendation from the Budget Task and Finish Group, which is over 1.5 years ago, that the council reviewed its assets, and that was accepted. That recommendation was accepted by council and then subsequently ignored. However, Corporate Resources has succeeded in retrieving it from the long grass. So I look forward, in the spirit of what Councillor Davis was saying, to working in a very constructive, cross-party way on an asset review. Thank you.
Councillor Massey, do you wish to respond?
Thank you. No, I look forward to that too. I'm aware that the council has substantial lists of its assets and that they are RAG rated. There are certainly things that we absolutely cannot sell. There are things that we might sell but might cause a bit of a ruckus. And there are things that are potentially assets for disposal, etc. So that list does exist, but I'd be happy to work with members and resources scrutiny on discussing the list moving forward, because as we've all discussed today, the council's in very difficult financial circumstances, and anything we can do locally to try and bridge that gap, although it's only for 1 year with an asset sale, it can certainly help bridge the gap till we eventually, hopefully, I say this all the time and it's not here yet, I'll arrive at better days in the future. But thanks for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. We move on to question 4. Question from Councillor Kerr to Councillor Suthers, Cabinet Member for Children.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Suthers, in the same vein as my previous question, the transformation programme and why we are so far behind with our savings targets in children's services. Thank you.
Councillor Suthers.
Okay. Thanks very much for asking this. And the last question, because I think that's really what it's all about, you know. Lisa and I was just looking at the figures in Chris's report, oversee £134 million in the revenue budget out of 154, and we very rarely get asked questions. So thanks very much, because I think it's important we explore this. It's Lisa's first one today, and this is my third, and it does no harm whatsoever, because your question has kept Danielle and Philip right on the toes, you know, in coming up with the answers to this. And I've got a lot of detailed information with numbers and one thing and another from a range of officers, which I could have made this a very long answer. But what I'll do is I'm quite happy to go through them with you if you want at some point afterwards. So I'll just give you the answer that I've got, and if you want to go into greater detail with it, I'm happy to do it, but it'll take us till about 8 o'clock otherwise. The number of children being cared for in high-cost placements is not financially sustainable. We're working on a number of projects to reduce the reliance on external providers. These include developing 16 to 17-year-old supported accommodation, developing accommodation for our separated migrant children, working with a provider to develop a children with disabilities home for 5 children, working with a provider to develop 3 solo homes for children with disabilities. A number of these projects have achieved the savings forecast. I've got all that data if you want to go into it at some point. However, there have been delays in some of these projects. As I say, it's slippage rather than not saving. The savings forecast is not inaccurate and will be realised over the next 2 years. The reasons for delay includes sale of council property to provider to develop 5-bed children with disabilities home has taken longer than expected. It's a Skinning Grove, probably know. Accommodation identified for 2 of the solo children with disability homes provided were proved to be not appropriate for Ofsted registration. So Danielle's had a look closely at this, and we're currently working with that provider to identify more suitable properties. So that's been sort of delayed and changed. Delays in recruiting registered managers. This is really difficult to do. I mean, we have one home, I won't go into detail, probably shouldn't go into detail, but where the registered manager failed the Ofsted test. The home was all right, but the registered manager failed. So that, you know, that caused a lot of problems. And getting registered managers for the 3 solo homes is causing us a bit of a delay in recruiting the registered manager who will satisfy Ofsted. It's not straightforward. We continue to implement strategies to reduce high-cost placements, and these include Development of our in-house provision, okay, which again I could go into more detail about and some of the numbers, and working with the region to develop the regional care cooperative, which is government policy that's developing from Josh McAllister, and we're a bit ahead of the game with it. We agree with all that. This is working with commissioners, working together to negotiate fees. Our own DCS, Danielle, plays an important role in these regional negotiations. I think she's chairing this regional care cooperative. Okay, I hope that gives you a general answer.
Thank you, Councillor Suthers. Councillor Kerr, would you like a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My supplementary, Councillor Suthers, it's a little bit more esoteric, and I've just thought of it, actually. The well-being of the council depends on the financial situation in children's services, certainly the finances in children's. Within your service, the laser focus is there. It's on children in our care. Someone said to me, the rest is nickels and dimes. I am wondering if there is scope across the council for other services to lean further into children's services to offer support. Are we doing everything that we can corporately? So, for example, our discussion on assets just now, how is our estate supporting children and families? So it's maybe a discussion for another day, but just some thoughts I'm having. And it's perhaps something the different scrutinies could pick up, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Suthers.
An esoteric answer then. I'll just give you one angle to the answer to this, and that is that it's sort of invest to save. You know, we've agreed with Phil the idea that we've got a fund of £3 million now, sort of for capital expenditure, and we've bought one children's home on West Dyke Road. We're currently training staff, and that'll be up and running. So that's a bit of a slippage, but we're planning then to use that capital fund to buy another 5 or 6 homes locally. So that you know, as you quite rightly said, this is where the big money is. These are where the big savings are. I mean, caring for the most complex children in our care can cost upwards of £1 million a year per child. You know, and if we can develop some of our own children's homes, we can do that. So we're working. It's not just only working within the local authority to improve the financial position, but it's also working in collaboration with other local authorities in the North East and the care cooperative, Danielle's playing a leading role in. That's important as well, isn't it? Because one of the big problems is that, you know, we've got the suppliers can charge whatever price they like almost. They play one against another. But if we all work together, hopefully we'll bring that price down. So there are different ways of doing it. And I can assure you there are a wide range of strategies which I tried to briefly cover there. And as we've got reams of emails I could go through with you on this from various people in officers in the department, and lots of lists and numbers and stuff. But we have strategies to try and address this in various forms. And it's a regional strategy and a local strategy, and we've got a capital expenditure strategy. I mean, I'll mention the Skinning Grove one, which has been delayed a bit because we're going to lease the old school building at Skinning Grove to a provider. We couldn't afford to do the capital expenditure that's needed to bring it up to standard. So instead, we're leasing it to a provider. We're going to lease to a provider. We've now decided that wasn't financially viable. So we're selling it to the provider. But one of the contractual things with regards to that is that we get first use of it. So it'll be children from our area that get first use. Only if we don't use all 5 or 6 places will they be able to will they be able to sell them elsewhere, and we get a discount on that as well. So, you know, there are a whole range of strategies. I could go on. I'm going on, aren't I? I'll shut up now. We can have a chat about it, if you like, over a coffee.
Thank you, Councillor Suthers. Question 5, a question from Councillor Kay to Councillor Quatermain, Cabinet Member of Highways and Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would have liked to have read out my submission, but apparently I'm not allowed to. So I'll just point out that, in my opinion, oven close lay-by, which is supposed to be run by this council, is, in my opinion, the worst case of neglect in this borough. And what is more, when I've reported the various things that are wrong with it, nothing has been done to improve it. On my way to the council tonight, I thought they might have done something. This will undermine my question. But no, you've guessed it, nothing had been done. And the council thinks it can just turn a blind eye to this problem and do nothing. It's absolutely shocking, and I've outlined all the things that are wrong in my question. And remember, this is the Moor Road, the scenic Moor Road, from Redcar and Cleveland onto Whitby and Scarborough. And this eyesore is allowed to continue in amongst it. It's absolutely disgusting.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Quatermain.
Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for your question, Councillor. You'll probably be aware I don't deal with fly tipping, but I'm happy to answer this question. I would say the suggestion that the council has ignored this site is simply wrong. And I would also say, if this question was so urgent, I'm surprised that the Highways Department haven't heard about it. I haven't heard about it. The only well, you can do the supplementary in a minute. Well, it hasn't come to Highways. It would go to the Environment Officer. Well, it would. And as far as I'm aware, they've received a complaint about that in late February. So if this has been going on for a long, long time, I'm surprised that you're coming to the council now to say it's really urgent. I think probably what's happened is the residents complained to you, and now it's a really urgent question. But the suggestion. Recently. So the suggestion that the council has ignored this is simply wrong. The street scene team is on that lay-by every week. They check for fly tipping, empty the bins and carry out litter picking. When the chalky material was reported, it was dealt with quickly, including bringing in additional equipment. That is the factual record, whether it fits your narrative or not. We have already reviewed the site and making practical improvements. The bin is being replaced, the maintenance schedule is being tightened, and the annual vegetation cut at the entrance is in place. Highways officers have completed their inspection of potholes and repairs as per my portfolio, and they are on schedule. Again, that is action, not inaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. Councillor Kay, do you have a supplementary question?
Is first of all to say that 20% of the manure and chalky substance, which was in a great big pile, 20% is still there. And it even goes onto the road surface through the lay-by. So if you have been, Councillor Quatermain, you haven't done a very good job. The bin, I've been to there today, it has definitely not been replaced. My complaint about the disgusting, neglected state of oven close lay-by is highlighted by an unusual, possibly unique feature. We always have to see the funny side of things. Half a dozen by the way, they haven't been removed. Half a dozen Wellington boots fixed to the barbed wire fence. Councillor Quatermain, these boots are made for walking. How long will it be before you walk them away with the rest of the oven-close, lay-by mess?
Councillor Quatermain.
I say it's like talking to a Sun tabloid journalist, but all I say is, look, this administration is not turning a blind eye. We're doing the job, and we'll continue to do that across the whole borough, including East Cleveland, regardless of your political point scoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. We move on to question 6. The question from Councillor Van to Councillor Quatermain, Cabinet Member for Highways Waste, which Councillor Hart will ask.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I'm just quickly going through it, Carl, because I got an email about this at 2 o'clock. Would I read these out? As you are aware, there are ongoing issues across Setland Ward relating to the damaged and unsafe footpaths, including damaged footpaths, unstable pavements and raised paving surfaces. You can take everything as read, but if you could answer, could you welcome the opportunity for you to join Councillor Laven on a ward walk alongside the Highways Service Lead, and could you email her on your availability so that you can agree a suitable date and time to meet? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Councillor Quatermain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for stepping in, Councillor Hart. And of course, I'm happy to meet on site with the councillor. I would say footpaths across the borough are inspected every 6 months. Any safety critical defects identified during those inspections are scheduled for repair. Additional inspections are also carried out whenever issues are reported by residents or ward members. Funding for footway, this is for everybody as well, by the way. Funding for footway resurfacing is limited. The 2025-26 programme, which included 9 schemes borough-wide, one of the largest schemes we delivered this year was the resurfacing of Lincoln Road in Zetland, which covered around 1,700 square metres. So we're not neglecting Zetland in that regard. A recent inspection in Zetland identified a small number of defects that do require attention, and these have been added to the work schedule. In several parts of the ward, originally flagged footpaths have previously been replaced with tarmac to accommodate the tree roots, which are always a constant problem. Some of those sections had deteriorated, and repairs were completed in February. I think I was there in February myself, helping out. Further remedial works are already planned and will be delivered over the coming months. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. Now, has Councillor Van asked you to a supplementary question for on her behalf?
Just if you could give her that in writing, Carl, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. We move on to question 7, which again will be asked by Councillor Hart on behalf of Councillor Van to Councillor Bendelow, Cabinet Minister for Neighbourhoods. Councillor Hart.
And we'll find this question. Right, in April 2025, the previous Cabinet member committed to and signed off funding for a new play equipment and complementary flooring for the paddling pool on the Stray. Unfortunately, there was an initial lead time delay of 6 months, and installation has since been further delayed due to flooding and dangerous issues. I understand these issues must be resolved prior to the installation of the new equipment and flooring. The paddling pool is a real jewel in the crown of the community and is much loved and well used facility for local children, families, visitors, particularly during the spring and summer months. Given its importance, can you confirm today that the necessary drainage works will be prioritised and completed, and that the installation of the play equipment and flooring will take place as soon as practically possible. Thank you.
Councillor Bendelow.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question. Yeah, unfortunately the drainage works were only identified as part of the preparation of the resurfacing of the area. This has impacted on the completion of the scheme, which will start with the required drainage being completed in April and the other works being completed during May. This should enable work to be complete before the school holidays, and the completion of the drainage works will make the equipment last longer and be good for that area. I've also already had a call from the officer to say that I'll sign off the required works to be done as a matter of urgency as well.
Thank you, Councillor Bendelow.
There's no supplementary question. Could you give her that in writing, please, Neil? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. We move on to question 8. It's a reminder that in the absence of Councillor Pallister, Councillor Richardson will be responding to the question from Councillor Taylor to Councillor Pallister, Cabinet Member of Economic Growth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, it's just every day in my full-time job I visit 3, 4, 5, 6 new build sites around West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, Bradford, Leeds, all over the place, and pretty much every site I visit has play facilities for the children, families and active travel routes around these, and you know, that's why I've put the question forward. I've raised it prior before in growth, but with TS6 alone having 4 recent developments and another 3 or 4 pending big side developments, we don't have any play parks in these current ones, or I believe anything planned. So the rest of the question as read, please.
Councillor Richardson.
Lynn says she can send a more detailed written response, but basically each local authority has its own local plan which sets out planning obligations expected by the developers, meaning requirements vary between areas and are shaped by economic viability. For example, the average house prices here in 2025 were 146,000 and in North Yorkshire were 272,000, which then affects what the developers can reasonably deliver. Our local plan does secure obligations such as play provision and active travel, demonstrated by the recently approved high farm development in TS6, which will provide funding for education, NHS, leisure facilities and play space through that 106 agreement, alongside connections to the Black Path and Smith Dock right of way. This shows the appropriate obligations are being secured and the planning team. Elected members and regulatory committee will continue to do so, with future requirements being formalised through the revised NPPF and our new local plan. And I can give you a breakdown of that particular 106 agreement, which is educational provision 426,000, which is increasing capacity in local mainstream schools, and 49,000 for SEND provision. NHS, which is additional capacity at Manor House Surgery, which must be the local doctor's surgery, 113,000. Leisure provision 209,000 towards improvement at Eston Leisure Centre, and play facilities 62,000 to contribute to a local play park. I hope that's a sufficient description. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Taylor, do you have a supplementary question?
Couldn't answer it, Carrie, but yeah, thank you for that answer. Personally, I don't believe that the value of someone's property should dictate whether they get a play park in the area or not. I think if we're going to have Taylor Wimpey or whatever house builder build it, we should be putting some type of facilities in there for our children and families, regardless of where you live. I believe that the local plan should be about ready for submitting, or if not already, let's hope that includes this in this current local plan in growth. So I'll email Lynn separately, but thanks for the answer. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Labour administration for the play parks across Redcar and Cleveland, for the current play parks that we're getting as well. So look forward to trying to get some money for Eston and Normanby for that. Thank you.
Councillor Richardson.
Personally, totally agree. You know, I live on a new estate and our developer was meant to put all sorts in, and at the end said it wasn't viable and walked away. So, you know, I will happily take part in the new plan consultation for the local plan and trying to strengthen rights that we have against developers. I know it infuriates our staff as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Move on to question 9. A question from Councillor J. Hart to Councillor Bendelow, Cabinet Minister for Neighbourhoods.
I'm asking this question publicly because I'm sure I'm not the only one that's confused with this, and the gossip mongers are going round with all sorts of tales. And as a cabinet member and a councillor, you always answer immediately anyway. So that's the reason why I'm asking it in public, Neil. So I've been contacted by a few businesses over their concerns over the new food caddies. It's believed that businesses are having to mandatorily purchase a food waste bin, even if they don't want to warrant the use of one. Many small businesses, I should take my glasses off, you know, I can read my own writing better then. Many small businesses will not have food on their premises. Can you please set the record straight regarding this to allay unnecessary rumours flying around, which they are doing in Gisborne at the moment? So A, will businesses be forced to buy a bin? And B, will businesses be forced to pay for removal? Thanks, Neil.
Councillor Bendelow.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question, especially the topic now with food waste starting in the next few weeks. The introduction of food waste collections for business is in response to UK government's simpler recycling legislation, which states that all businesses with 10 or more employees must separate out recycling, general waste and food waste by the 31st of March 2025, and those businesses with less than 10 employees must do the same by the 31st of March 2027. The legislation states all workplaces in England must separate their waste before it's collected, including any waste produced by employees, customers and visitors. Whilst businesses might not create food waste themselves, they need to consider how they dispose of the waste brought to their premises by their customers, staff or visitors. It's up to the owners to make suitable arrangements as part of their own commercial waste collections, so whether they need to buy a bin or pay an additional amount for food waste collection is down to them and their contractor. It is the business decision whether they comply or not, but the Environment Agency will contact them to establish if they are adhering to the legislation. Thank you.
Councillor Hart, have a supplementary?
Again, so that I can get the right comms out there, Neil, could you send me that in writing? And again, thank you for setting off sprinting with your new role. The few things that you've helped me with massively, very quickly, I've appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. We move on to question 10. Question from Councillor Leroyd to Councillor Quartermain, Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport.
The STDC has a 10% stake in Teesworks. The 10% is a non-dividend holding. The STDC is currently carrying 414 million in debt, partly due to the needless 90-10 deal the Mayor made with a handful of private individuals as part of the Teesworks ownership debacle. The debt generates approximately 15 million in annual loan interest payments. The STDC board papers 30th of March 2026 at point 14 state that 100 million is to be proposed to transfer from the TVCA to the STDC. This is money that is supposed to be spent on transport infrastructure. This is strange as the STDC doesn't fund transport. This is 100 million that could have gone to local bus services linking Mask, Gisborne, and there's a question coming up on that, and East Cleveland. I include the renamed and hacked to bits 81 bus service linking Mask with Gisborne as one of those services. We've lost morning and evening services now, as well as have we lost Sunday previously. Of the 1 billion the government allocated, it was reduced to 960 million by misallocation. I noticed that Joe Moore mentioned this. The 100 million of the STDC I speak about here reduces the pot to 860 million. A further 250 million for highly questionable Northern Link Road at Darlington leaves 610 million. Some money appears also to be held back over the allocated period rather unnecessarily, potentially for political purposes, I would add, when it comes to the election. The 100 million going to the STDC resides in a CRSTS category, and there are two of these. But this pot that it's going into won't exist beyond 27-28 and will be impossible to draw down. In my opinion, the 100 million serves no other purpose but to slow the rate at which the STDC becomes insolvent and inevitably collapses. Please can the Cabinet member contact the TVCA and Mayor and highlight the concerns that many of us share that transport funds are not being used appropriately and that it is to the detriment of communities around the borough.
Thank you, Councillor Leroy. I say, I'll just remind everybody that we'll take questions read. There's no need to read them out in full. Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, I have raised this with the TVCA and have also asked that it is brought to the Transport Committee. My understanding is that that allocation is within the CRSTS funding in any case, but I have asked for that to come to the Transport Committee so that we can understand the full connotations of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Councillor Leroy, would you have a supplementary question?
I do in this instance, yeah. Ultimately, the 81 service is a victim of the privatised sector, which then selects the most profitable routes. When I investigated a little bit further into this 100 million, it appears as the South Bank Railway is now being used as a reason for this 100 million relocation, should we put it. And this is part of the 49.5 million West Transport Hub. I don't see what the urgency is, why this would all of a sudden happen now when this has been on the cards since 2024 and there was no real urgency back then. But what is noticeable now is that there is a 14.5 million servicing, or risk should I say, to the TVCA, with the STD servicing loans back to it. So you've got this circular financial pattern emerging. There are no substantial projects that are due over the 4-year period of the transport plan. When we look at Net Zero Teesside, it will generate 150 jobs. When we look at the TERV, if KKR don't go bust in the meantime, keep an eye on the shadow banking sector for that, that will be about 25 to 30 jobs. So we're talking about 180. So again, it doesn't stack up the South Bank Railway scenario. Now, I've seen your email that you received, Councillor Quartermain, and the reply from TVC, and I find it rather inadequate. The Mayor should have used the funding that was available over the years to bring transport into public ownership, and then we wouldn't have seen the private selection, should we say, of profitable services. So I'm asking if you can approach the other councils in the Tees area with a push that the TVCA brings buses into public ownership so that firms who are offshoring their profits to tax havens don't govern which services service our community and leave pensioners stranded and unable to climb a hill of 1 mile in Mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leroy. Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to raise that with other councils. It's been raised before, actually, and I'm on the record as being behind public ownership of our buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. Move on to question 11. A question from Councillor Leroy to Councillor Bendelow, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods.
As read.
Councillor Bendelow.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Following the recent wet period, the Highways team has received a wide range of correspondence regarding highway verges. These include concerns about verge conditions, requests to remove informal verge markers such as rocks and planters, and suggestions to replace verges with tarmac. Each street with a verge in the borough is unique, and a one-size-fits-all approach is not appropriate. Some verges are well maintained by residents and require no intervention, while others need maintenance due to vehicle overrun. For streets where concerns have been raised, we plan to utilise the residents-led Safer Streets process that will enable residents to highlight specific locations where verges are causing issues. This approach will allow the most appropriate solution to be implemented, taking into account parking provision, residents' preferences, biodiversity, the natural drainage benefits provided by verges, and the need to manage any obstructions to the highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendolo. Councillor.
Thank you. Yep, that's a good answer. There was just one adjunct to that. The Safe Street Pack process is somewhat cumbersome and it's quite old now. I remember using it back in, you might remember back in 2011 using these paper packs and going around and getting signatures. Just wondering if there's a more succinct way that we can deliver that and whether we can modernise it.
Councillor Bendolo.
No? Oh, there you go. Right, thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks for the question. Can I look into that and think we can make it more easier? Because I agree with you, because we sort of have these policies that sometimes they're quite hard for people to follow. So let me have a look into that and I'll get back to you. Is that all right? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendolo. Move on to question 12. This is a question from Councillor Leroy to Councillor Pallister, but in the absence of Councillor Pallister, Councillor Richardson will be responding. Councillor Leroy.
Yeah, I'll read this one out because of the gravity of this as well. So I've seen correspondence from a resident who recently moved into a new build, and the specifications of the room sizes were out to such an extent that one of the bedrooms, which was designated for one person, was deemed only suitable by the council, should I add, for a child under 10 years of age, and this is qualified as half a person in the report. In the same piece of correspondence, a suggestion was made to convert the lounge of the house to a bedroom to accommodate the family of 4. It has also come to my attention that the council doesn't check the specifications of new builds with regards to dimensions. The council simply trusts the measurements provided on the plans to be true. This is a huge disservice not only to the buyer or tenant, but also to all of those involved in the local housing market. As such practice be widespread, housing market price points are being distorted. Can the council enforce the standards it lays out in planning processes and the details of an application, including build measurements, or at least verify them? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leroy. Councillor Richardson.
I was interested in this because I didn't know the answer myself. So whenever a person rents or buys a residential property, they're doing that based on the physical product in front of them at the time. This is a civil matter between the developer and the potential renter purchaser, and the council doesn't really have a role in or responsibility in that transaction. Where they do have a role is determining the planning application, approving the plans and designs. Plans submitted to support planning applications are drawn to a recognised scale with annotations and dimensions. Any plans will by their nature have certain error tolerances, and no development, e.g. width, walls, heights, etc., will ever be completely precise in accordance with the approved plans. That's the nature of the building process, but planning officers and building control officers do check potential discrepancies where they observe them or are made aware of them by members of the public. Whether enforcement action is then taken as a result is a subjective matter, and the council will need to decide whether it's expedient to take action depending on the scale and impact of discrepancy. So I don't know if this particular case was raised with the council planning team and whether they were able to take action, or in fact it can be now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. No, you don't have it. Thank you, Councillor Leroy. We'll move then on to question 13. Again, a question from Councillor Leroy, but this time to Councillor Robson, Cabinet Member for Adults. Councillor Leroy.
It came to our attention recently that the market providing occupational therapy aids to the elderly, including rails and bath hoists, is largely unregulated. Recently, a resident was offered the same bathroom mobility aid at a price of $199. It is clear that there are unscrupulous individuals out there taking advantage of elderly residents who are often more vulnerable through social isolation and or comorbidity. What active steps can the Cabinet member and the Council take to prevent sales sharks taking advantage of the occupational therapy aid market?
Councillor Robson.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for your question. I've spoken to the resident that contacted us both about this to gather his views on what he would like to see happen in his experiences. I've also raised it directly with officers. As a local authority, we offer assessments for adults to consider occupational therapy solutions that may support them with activities of daily living. Adults can contact our access team for an individual assessment along with targeted advice and information. Through the access team, individuals are also able to book an appointment at the Independent Living Centre, where they could trial a range of equipment and technology designed to promote independence at home. Where someone is assessed as having a care need, eligible need, the occupational therapy equipment required to meet these needs is provided at no cost to the residents, and any of this equipment is obviously, good quality and, meets the need. This ensures that people do not have to turn to the private market for essential items that should rightly be provided as part of their care and support. Adults and their families can also access a tool called Ask Sarah via the Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council website. This online guided self-assessment tool provides personalised equipment suggestions based on individual needs. We appreciate, however, that some adults and families may choose not to access support through the council and instead prefer to purchase equipment or adaptations independently. Unfortunately, the council does not hold oversight of all providers operating within this marketplace. However, I absolutely agree that leaves residents open to be taken advantage of by some of these kind of companies. So I've addressed this and I've asked for these concerns to be looked at with our occupational therapy department, and the lead is going to be looking at pulling some information together to give to our residents about advice. So it's going to be rather than just the signposted, that the occupational therapy lead will be drafting new guidance for adults to support informed decision making when considering privately purchased equipment or occupational therapy solutions. So while we're not able to recommend or endorse specific companies, we're hoping this new guidance, expected to be available on our website, because I've asked for that to be done quite soon, to be available within the next 30 days. This will assist individuals in navigating the range of options available, because I recognise that it's a minefield out there and people don't know where to kind of look. I've also asked the resident who approached us about this in the first place to be involved in that, because I'm really keen as a cabinet member that people with lived experience who are the experts are involved in that. So I've asked for, because he offered that in our conversation, he's going to be willing to be part of looking at that guidance because he knows what the gap was. As soon as we've got that document produced, I'll share it with you and anybody else that's interested as well. So the other thing as well, we really need people to be aware, if anyone hears about anything kind of unscrupulous, that people engage and encourage people to report to trading standards. So again, we can put something in the guidance around that as well. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Robson. Councillor Leroy, supplementary?
No, that was
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Leroy. We move on then to question 14. From a question from Councillor Thompson to Councillor Bendelow, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods. Councillor Thompson.
In accordance with your guidance, Your Worshipfulness, the question is read.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Bendelow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Thompson. There are no planned capital maintenance works to be undertaken on the boundary treatments of the Valley Gardens or Riftwood. The team will rectify any safety critical defects that arise. However, there is insufficient budget to undertake wider maintenance improvement works on this boundary treatment or others similar in the borough. The works raised in a 99-day ticket referencing the question were undertaken in 2025. Further asks have been made which haven't met the threshold of being safety critical, except when they may not look appealing. Where possible, we will fix broken elements of the boundary treatment. However, carriageway, footway and drainage works take priority for the small highways team. But just to finish, when obviously you invited me up to Saltburn and we've seen the Valley Gardens, I have gone back to the team and I've asked them if they will look at and consult with yourself and the volunteers to see if we can put a bid together, a plan together for the Valley Gardens, which we will then try and get external funding for to be able to do, if we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendelow. Councillor Thompson, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. I'll just preface that with reply to the answer. It is disappointing, despite the written commitment given by the authority, that work would be carried out. It is perhaps with some surprise, although no surprise really, that yesterday 5 sections of railing were actually replaced. So contrary to your guidance that we've just been given, the department is in parallel to that doing work that was not safety required. So again, your worshipfulness, there is a complexity of disarray that we are receiving where a 99-day ticket is given but no work is being carried out. Anyone looking at the railings in question, which extend for some half a mile, there are railings that are disconnected, there are railings that are rusted, all of which are safety features. So can we explain why a director says that the department will continue to do work that is already contracted for in its budget? That's a paradox, is it not? So can we have clarification on what we're actually going to be doing so that I can be clear about that before I go back to member inquiries in the morning?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Bendelow.
Thank you for the question. When you invite me up when we walked around, I raised them what you raised to me, to the team, and they've obviously done that before you put this question in. But that's why I've asked them if we could do a bigger piece of work in there, because it's such a vast area and it's a jewel in the crown for Saltburn. So that's my assurance to you. We will try and get this plan with yourselves involved and then see if we can get external funding for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendelow. I note question 15 is a question to Councillor Earl, but Councillor Earl is absent. Can I ask if anybody is going to respond on her behalf? If not, can Councillor Thompson accept that maybe this comes back at the next council meeting for a response? Councillor Thompson.
Well, thank you for your guidance, your worshipfulness, but I find it disappointing that cabinet responsibility is not being exercised. However, in the absence of it not being exercised, I will accept a written explanation, but I still would like the opportunity to ask my supplementary.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
And in which
I don't think that would be allowed. Yeah. Sorry, that's what I was asking before. Councillor Richardson is going to respond to your question.
But yeah, I don't know why this one wasn't signed over to me and the others were. The Climate and Environment Scrutiny and Improvement Committee, of which Councillor Thompson is a member, considered the outcomes from the crustacean deaths working group on the 30th of January. The committee discussed the need for more coherent, ongoing joint working between all organisations, including the Environment Agency. It recommended the need for ongoing, frequent water quality testing Whilst the primary agency responsible for the quality of coastal water in England is the Environment Agency, council officers raised the issue of water quality testing with the Environment Agency's new area director for the North East at a meeting on the 16th of March to ensure residents' concerns remain on the radar. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Councillor Thompson, would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And your worshipfulness has been clear in ensuring that cabinet responsibility has been exercised, and I thank the councillor for attempting a reply. Now, the essence of the question, I feel, has not been fully addressed, but it will be of interest to members, I'm sure, that in respect of the Tees Valley water quality, we've had a very positive response today from PD Ports, who have offered a temporary seal examination area on the headland, which is most welcome. So I thank them for the positive response, even though they've been given some negative publicity as a result of the High Court decision. But more specifically in respect of the Skelton Beck, my supplementary question is, will the portfolio holder, in her absence, invite the Environment Agency to explain why it has not issued appropriate fines for each and all pollution instances in Skelton Beck over the last 5 years?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Richardson.
I'm sure she will, because they attend the Climate and Scrutiny Committee annually to discuss issues of concern, and members may have the opportunity to raise issues about water quality at these meetings. I don't know when they last attended and when they're due next, but I'm sure that can be arranged to be asked when they're there.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Move on to question 16. Question from Councillor Davies to Councillor Quatermain, Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. Councillor Davies.
Councillor Quatermain, can you tell me if you have a copy of the report for the East Cleveland Rail Project, and if not, have you at least got proof of asking for said report, given my question to you at your annual report?
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Quatermain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor Davies. The report you're seeking is for the East Cleveland Rail Project. It's called the SLBC. It's a strategic outline business case. The report isn't finalised yet. That's the short answer. The report is in the final stages of drafting, following some requests by the TVCA for a small amount of additional work, and is currently anticipated to be completed and approved in early May. It's been delayed as initially it took longer than the TVCA anticipated to access the infrastructure and carry out the feasibility work. And subsequently to that, whilst the report was in production, the government issued updated guidance around business cases referred to as the Green Book Review. The TVCA wanted to take that opportunity to reflect on the report and review this document in light of this Green Book Review. The SLBC report is a comprehensive piece of work which will help to inform stakeholders and enable them to make the decisions about how to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Davies?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. I'm very disappointed, really, with the whole process, and I'm disappointed with the TVCA, and I'm disappointed with the fact that following Councillor Quatermain's report, nothing really much has happened. I'm disappointed with the response that he's just given me, bearing in mind I've been chasing the TVCA now for weeks, and he's literally read word for word the same response I've just got from the TVCA. I was just having a look at it while he was reading it just to see if it was exactly the same or he was going to come up with something a bit original. It's disappointing that things that need to be spent in this boat to get the economy moving, get everything working so that people have opportunity and something to look forward to, has to take so long. It baffles me that, you know, TVCA, and you need to take this back to the TVCA and ask them why this gets dragged out so long all the time. We're talking about the 100 million that's getting pumped into the STDC just earlier on as part of another question. 100 million, if they got their fingers out the backside and got on with the East Cleveland Rail project, we could be looking at East Cleveland Rail in the next 5 years. That 100 million would probably pay for it. Some of the things that I'm getting told is that it's potentially going to cost 8 to 9 million. 8 to 9 million, and we're going to chuck 100 million in at the STDC instead. Something is absolutely wrong. And I think you need to be a bit more firm and a bit more stronger with your interactions with the Tees Valley Combined Authority. And I think everyone in this room should be worried about what's going on and why stuff gets hidden, why we're not getting the funding and the everything that we need to move this borough forward, so that we're all on a more positive outlook for our residents in this borough and for the whole of the Tees Valley. And I'm just absolutely miffed off, Councillor. I am absolutely miffed off, and the fact that the response that you've read out is pretty much the response I've had from the TVCA just about sums up the you know, what goes on, and the fact that people are just collaborating on it. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it feels like. It feels like nobody's fighting the corner for the people in this borough anymore.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you for that, Councillor Davies. And absolutely, I'm hardly going to respond with a different reply than was received. What I've given you is a summary of a very detailed response that and you've already received, which I would have shared with you anyway. But you know, I share with you your frustration. You know, the TVCA, as far as I'm concerned, do move slowly operationally. I totally agree with that. And you know, how firm do you want me to be? You know, how firm? Like angry voice? You know, how much further would that get me? Probably not. You know, I think in the CRSDS there's something like 26 projects there, which they're delivering. It just takes a long time to get through all these things. And at the end of the day, we don't even know if there's feasibility for the railway is going to end up to the fruition of where we want it to go. You know, I'm fully behind the project myself. So all I can say is, you know, firm up yourself as well and keep writing to the TVCA and copy me in if you're writing to the TVCA so I can see it. And then I can double down with you because I share your frustration. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Leroy, it's not a point of order. And I'm aware of the time at the moment. And we have 2 questions left on our things. The next question, question 17, is from Councillor Joy to Councillor Quartermain, Cabinet Member Highways and Transport. Hopefully we can take it as read. Yeah. Can Councillor Quartermain respond to the question, please?
Working. Is that better? Thank you very much. And again, I can get you a more detailed response to this. It's again, some of this isn't really my portfolio because it deals with planning. That's another portfolio. But I've had a response, and I've summarised it as well because it was very lengthy. So once a development begins, responsibility for infrastructure such as highways sits between the developer and the council. Where work benefits the public, the council enters into a Highways Act agreement, which requires developers to meet defined standards, follow approved drawings, complete works to agreed milestones, and provide a financial bond so the council can step in if they do not do that. The highways team is involved from design through to construction and post-completion monitoring to ensure works are built to adoptable standards. So the idea that this is the Wild West is not really accurate. There has previously been a backlog of adoptions due to limited staffing. Dedicated officers are now in post to resolve this backlog, and the team is expanding to meet the increased demand that comes with higher housing delivery. And as I say, a more detailed response. And again, I would advise you as well to perhaps write to the Assistant Director, Andrew Carter, and copy myself in. And I think it's probably Councillor Pallister. Thank you.
Councillor Joy, do you have a supplementary question?
But I'll make it really quick. I beg to differ on the that you don't think it's like the Wild West. If you tried living on there, I have to say I don't, but I do have friends who do, and obviously residents. It's like living on the site in Dusseldorf at Alf Wiedersehen-Pet, but less funny. So I beg to differ on that bit. But I think that what I don't want this question to be, it's not an assault on the council officers, and I get, as usual, limited resource. It's that what can we do to fill in the gaps where it seems like there's no accountability when we are sort of tussling between the developers and what we want to adopt, but we can't because there's a big long list of what they need to remediate, and it seems like we've got no teeth to enforce it. So I'd quite like if we could sit down and have, and obviously we might approach Andrew Carter as well to do that, to find out what more we can do because residents are living in limbo. So.
Councillor Waterman.
And the officers are in the room here, and they hear that. I'm on the planning committee as well. Again, there's sort of frustrations about what you can and can't do, but I do think you make a valid point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman. We move to question 18. A question from Councillor Joy to Councillor Waterman, Cabinet Member, Highways and Transport.
Please take it as read.
Councillor Waterman.
The bus services were recently rejigged around Gisborough to Redcar, and the real world impact from Gisborough is that actually there's longer routes but there's fewer buses, so essentially it's like a bus-free vacuum, and in the words of Alan Partridge, they've rebadged it.
Councillor Waterman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that. Yeah, and apologies, I hadn't seen this question. I think there's been so many questions today that it's just gone amiss. I've got a prescribed reply, and apologies about that. Arriva have a statutory duty to formally register changes to local services with the traffic commissioner at least 6 weeks before they take effect. Is for the Commissioner to ensure that Arriva operate these services as advertised and in accordance with the law. There is a complaint process via Bus Users UK, which is an independent consumer watchdog for bus passengers. This process is for issues like unreliability, punctuality, staff behaviour or poor information, but not for commercial decisions or legal matters. I'll leave that there. What I will say is, again, Arriva make these decisions. They don't often communicate everything they don't, I have frustrations around the courtesy here to local members and even the TVCA. Arriva seem to be making decisions here without communicating. For me, it's a courtesy that we can pass on to our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman. Councillor Joy.
A very quick supplementary just to say, in future, I feel like there's more transparency around the decisions and taken. I know there was a consultation which we all fed into, but it feels like that hasn't landed for particular services. And I know residents in Gisborough have seen through that, and longer routes are great, but there's not as many. I know it's boring, I know. But some people like to get the bus places and they like to get them on the hour or not have to wait 3 or 4 hours. So that was all.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. I'm aware of the time now, so quick response.
And again, I share that frustration. It's just something that I bring up at the TVCA time and time again. Issues with the showers, issue with the time. getting complaints procedure on the timetables so people know where to and how to complain. All these things, it's all very frustrating. I agree with you.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. And that concludes the business for today. Everyone to stand.